was a great topic before me, and I'm happy to continue with my topic as well, which will be maybe not that interesting, but it will be a practical issue, a practical topic. As you can see, the title is quite appealing in a way, because it combines a couple of elements. Of course, opinions, hands-on approach, and public policy. So 3 elements which some of you might be familiar with public policy as a discipline, but well, if it's a discipline, how can we have a hands-on approach to this issue as well? And of course, public policy has its other side, which is not academic, and that's the practice of doing policy making, of being included in the policy process, and actually being part of something that scholars then observe in the academic part of public policy. So I will be talking about Politheor, which is actually a CEU Alumni-led policy platform intended to actually flock together talented policy analysts and experts which strive to influence basically European public policy, not just European but also national and local public policy. Preceding this gathering, I was actually trying to figure out what would be the best way to describe to you what Politheor is, and the first thing basically that crossed my mind was the project syndicate. So Politheor is a similar platform as the project syndicate. So it is basically a forum where different policy papers are transmitted to this platform. That's why it's called syndicate. So they syndicate the policy opinions and papers on, in this case, global issues, but in Politheor's perspective, it's a European view on public policy. So this will not be a classical lecture, of course. But of course, by no means that doesn't mean that in future occasions I won't be giving such a lecture. There's a short outline of today's presentation, so I'll be talking in short terms about our goals and outreach, why it's important for CEU, because we got our connections with CEU as well, and how we do things in Politheor, and basically surmount different challenges which arise from time to time. So, as I said, it's an NGO which is actually which was founded in Serbia. A colleague of mine, which is now a CEU chapter leader in Serbia, Jakub Bojovic, and me, we are the leading figures, so to say, in this NGO, and it is meant to be not just to flock together policy analysts, but also to debate European public policy and to publish different policy papers. And our goals are basically publishing those papers, supporting talents and policy analysis, promoting analysis of public policies, and building a European policy network in the end. So this is our final goal. We see about that, how that goes. Just a couple of things about the outreach. So we are in the process of basically building our capacity, but figures are quite high nowadays as well. So on average we get around 45,000 visits in this let's say half a year. It was 45, so at the end of the year it will probably be around 100,000. And Facebook likes are always important in the relations with social media. So, but interestingly enough, so okay, most views come from Romania, but there's also United States, which are before Croatia. So people are reading our stuff in the US as well. So this is something to cheer about. Our articles are also featured in Huffington Post from time to time, and our writers and interns are building their careers in different areas, and also get to submit their articles in different internationally relevant papers. Connections with CEU, of course. Some members of the editorial board are from CEU. We got 2 members of the advisory board, and the contributors are also from time to time from CEU. We also advertise CEU and their programs, and most importantly, recently we did an interview with one of the most prominent scholars at CEU, Uwe Püter, who on his groundbreaking new book on the European Council and the Council. So, as I mentioned a hands-on approach to public policy. So what does that mean in the context of Politheor? As said, we publish op-eds. As you may know, op-eds is a very convenient form of writing, especially in public policy as well, but also in political commentary and on, of course, a whole range of other issues, and not just political issues, but societal as well. So what does that process mean? Basically, when you write an op-ed as a form of writing, you have to take care of a couple of things. The first thing is, okay, if you write about policy issues, you have to identify a certain policy problem, a certain policy issue. It may be the investor-state dispute settlement mechanism. It may be something else, maybe EU asylum policy, or recently EU Arctic policy and the geopolitics behind it. Of course, policy as such is never just policy. It always has an element of politics in it as well. If you read this person's op-eds, this is not really what I'm talking about. So it's not that kind of op-eds. His op-eds are more political and ideological, and op-eds, in my sense of view, when talking about public policy, is everything but ideological. So recently we engaged with 16 young policy analysts who are giving voice to their opinions on policy issues. Very enthusiastic people, I must say, and we decided to give them an opportunity to write op-eds and to learn how to do it properly. As I said previously, you may remember. Okay, I didn't say say that. Okay, identifying problems is the first step. Then, of course, follows providing evidence for your case. When you talk about policy issues, you always have to have some evidence, at least in our opinion. And then when you express your opinions or comment on certain issues, you employ that evidence. At the end, you probably offer some solutions to get to an end with a certain problem. You may be also raising awareness or stirring up public debate on certain issues. Evidence in public policy, it's a recent thing, it's something new, and even the European Commission is actively engaged in evidence making in the purpose of doing public policy. In this case, European public policy. There's a whole Directorate General, which is called Joint Research Center, which does the evidence for policymakers. They are the guys that do the serious job, and the commissioners are just the ones who transmit it to the public, basically. And when I talk about evidence, there's a whole theory which engages with evidence, which is called evidence-based policy. So when you do policy analysis, you employ evidence in a way, but this term is nothing but it's basically very, very contested in the sciences, but also in the practice. Why? Because, of course, if you use evidence to make your case in certain issues, there will always be criticism about it. Of course, different people have different agendas which they follow. And of course, evidence is never basically neutral and unproblematic. So you use different evidence to make your case. You plagiarize evidence, or you manipulate with evidence just to be the person who's right. Of course, you can frame your issue in different ways. And of course, that changes the pathway after a certain issue is raised or has come on the stage of the political agenda. Different discourses, narratives, or rationalities, or sources of knowledge that you use to make your case can kind of make that evidence very, very lawful. Of course, at the end, the ontological and epistemological problems which arise. So this makes it clear evidence does not speak for itself. So there always has to be someone who makes that evidence or conveys that evidence to a certain audience. And there's where the problem lies, of course. But still, scholars agree that evidence-based policy as a form of doing public policy provides a common ground in the sense that you agree that evidence is important when making your case, when deciding on different social programs, which to ditch or which to continue providing money for. But of course, it is contested, so evidence is contested, but as you use evidence, different groups can in the process proceed along deliberative principles in order to, not for them, but for the public to decide who's right and who's wrong. And of course, when you do op-eds, which are a public policy form of writing, which include opinions on different policies, but which try to have that ingredient of evidence in it, the question always arises how to prevent this criticism of evidence-based policy, and how to reconcile, most importantly of all, evidence with opinions, because there's an ontological struggle between these two things. How can you have values and still be very objective about different things? And here comes the hands-on approach and hands-on tactics, which we use in Politheor, and that's why we think we're quite unique. So as I said, we have 16 interns. The starting point always when engaging with them is to acknowledge the ambivalence of evidence. So that's the starting point. We always say, okay, evidence is contested, it is ambivalent, but okay, it will, as the process goes on, it will probably the audience will decide for itself what's wrong and what's right. And always take the other side of the coin into consideration. So when you make a case, always think of a possible criticism of it, or a different frame, or a different take on it. The second thing is we provide trainings at Politheor in op-ed writing with those trainees that we have, and we teach them the following things. So always ground your opinions in arguments. So opinions are, in this case, not ideological. You can have an ideological stance and still not provide arguments, valuable arguments in your discussion, because it's a very fiery thing when you talk about ideology. The second thing, always offer evidence for your arguments. When you list your arguments, always make sure you have evidence. And third of all, address counter-arguments. And that's basically the way how we prevent possible criticisms on from the evidence-based critics. And if you remember, the last step in writing op-eds was conveying your message to the audience. That's here. Here it's also the second step in publishing op-eds, engaging in social media, promoting and sharing work of our analysts, and welcoming alternative views, rejoinders, and comments. This is basically the second step where we prevent any possible criticism, because this is a way how the deliberation can in itself basically disentangle the problem. I know it's not something perfect, but at least we're trying. Okay, that was it. Thank you for listening. Any questions are welcome.